Now, Tanzanian President Jakaya Kikwete will this afternoon address a joint sitting of the Kenyan Parliament. Kikwete, who is in the country on a 3-day state visit, will be the second foreign leader to address the Kenyan Parliament. On Monday, the outgoing Tanzanian head of state was accorded full state honors when he met his host, President Uhuru Kenyatta, on his last lap in Kenya as Tanzanian president. Now, Kikwete was accorded full state honors by his Kenyan host, Uhuru Kenyatta. He was given a 21-gun salute before inspecting a guard of honor at State House, Nairobi. Tanzania goes to the polls on October the 25th. Kikwete, who has served 2 terms, is due to retire. He will address Kenyan members of parliament and senators at a joint sitting of parliament. Together with his Kenyan counterpart Uhuru Kenyatta, the 2 leaders on Sunday launched the construction of a 90-kilometer road linking their 2 nations. Sam Ogina is in Parliament and we'll be speaking to him in a short while. Earlier on, President Jakaya Kikwete paid Nairobi Governor Evans Kidero a courtesy call at his office in Nairobi City Hall as part of his 3-day visit to Kenya. Kikwete expressed confidence that Kenya and Tanzania's deep economic ties would grow even stronger as a result of the visit and promised to make more trips to Nairobi even after his retirement. He was ceremoniously handed over the keys to Nairobi City as a gesture of kindness.
But all in all, let me sincerely express my gratitude for what you've just done for me, and I will always remember this gesture of friendship and cooperation. So, Governor, Deputy Governor, Speaker, the county government, county assembly, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I will always remember this, definitely. So whenever I come to Nairobi next time, I'll come and visit the governor. I may come back soon. Thank you.
Education Cabinet Secretary Jacob Kaimenyi has today maintained his support for TSC and proposed performance contracts for teachers, saying it will help the ministry keep a close eye on the use of money allocated for the teachers by the ministry. The CS also say that it is unacceptable that over 50% of teachers in schools countrywide are not working as they should, thus the need for the contracts. Kaimenyi was speaking during the launch of the 2014 Basic Education Statistical Booklet.
When we say our ed teachers, our principals must be held to account. It's obvious to you. It must be obvious to you. How can we give 44 million shillings every year to our institutions and somebody cannot be held to account? Tell me. Really? If it happens in other places, why not in our schools? I like the idea of the employer TSC subjecting teachers to performance contracting. This country has been known globally purely because of that. And we will not relent on this one because it's important. How do we measure your productivity, Jermaine? Unakuja, you're in school, we are told over 50% of our teachers are in school and are not teaching. Just imagine that. It is you and me who should ask that question.
Now, as part of the preparations to mitigate the effects of the looming El Niño rains, the Nyeri County government has embarked on a mission to unclog the drainage systems to reduce flooding on the streets. The process of unblocking the trenches was carried out in several parts of the town and especially in areas that are prone to floods. Nyeri Governor Nderitu Gachagua, who was joined by Nyeri County Commissioner Onesimus Musyoka, led the residents in clearing the drainages. Gachagua had earlier said that he would supply seeds to farmers so as to prepare their farms ahead of the rains.
Tuko na mpango mingi, wananchi tunajitayarisha mambo ya El Nino. Tangu mlinisikia nikilonchi mambo ya mbegu, Wednesday tunapatia wananchi mbegu, tunapatia maharagwe, tunapatia mahindi, hata ikiwa ni kilo 2 muende huko mpande ndio to improve food security in Nyeri. Na kwa sababu hii mvua itakuwa mingi, mpango tuko nayo hata huko Mukuruine na huko Udhaya pahali tunafikiria sasa kutakuwa na mpomoko wa ardhi,
na hii mvua inasemekana kwamba itakuwa mara 2 maradufu ile tulipata wakati wa mwisho 1990s. Kwa hivyo tunataka sisi wote tushirikiane pamoja ili tuweze kuhakikisha kwamba ile mikakati ambayo yote tumeweka imefuatwa kikamilifu na tusipoteze maisha hata kidogo. Kwa hivyo mimi yangu ni kuomba ushirikiano tu. Tukisema kwamba tufungue hizi drainage, tufungue zote. Tukisema kuna watu wengine tutahamisha, wahamishwe waende mahali ile salama. Alafu mvua ikiisha watarudi mahali walikuwa. Kwa hivyo sisi hatutaki kusukumana na mtu.
ODM is set to repeat its grassroots elections in Matoyo sub-county Busia today after chaos erupted in yesterday's exercise. Scores of people were injured yesterday when the chaos broke out after supporters of a Nairobi businessman closed the main gate in a bid to block Matoyo's MP Godfrey Odanga from getting out.
Matayo sub-county Busia Monday. Chaos erupted at the grassroots elections at sub-county level. Supporters of a Nairobi businessman, Charles Osore, closed the main gate in a bid to block Matayo's MP Godfrey Odanga from getting out of the Agricultural Training Center polling station. Rowdy youth bayed for his blood. Scores left injured. Police were forced to fire several shots in the air to disperse the rowdy youths to enable the MP drive to safety. They confirmed 2 arrests for those alleged to have caused the chaos. The Matayo's MP blamed perceived ODM malls for the chaos, accusing them of importing youth from outside to disrupt the elections, and vowed never to allow people with vested interest to divide the party.
Watu ambao wanataka kuleta mambo ya ukabila hapa ni watu ambao wanataka kutugawanya, kutumia ile divide and rule ili waweze kuingia hapa, kwa sababu wanajua hii ni ngome ya ODM, waivuruge na walete vyama vyao ambavyo sisi bado hatujaamini katika sera zake.
Nominated MCA Mohamed Noor said Osore was not even a member of the party and had no right to contest for the chairman seat.
Huwezi kuwa last election uliwania kiti kutumia chama kingine, hauja defect katika branch level ama sub-county level yako, watu hawana habari kwamba wewe umejiunga sasa na ODM.
Wamekaa mahali wanaandika list ya ujanja, lakini watu wote wako hapa na sisi tunataka uchaguzi wa wazi.
A repeat of the exercise is ongoing with the county level poll to follow suit. This isn't an isolated case, as more skirmishes have been reported at other wards. In August, 2 people were killed in Migori over disputes in the ODM elections, reflective of the national elections last year. Critics say ODM is at its lowest ebb in the county, while luminaries insist Busia is still an ODM stronghold. Dorcas Wangira, KTN News.
Let's now join our senior reporter Sam Ogina, who is at Parliament, where outgoing Tanzania's President Jakaya Kikwete is expected to address MPs and senators at a joint sitting. Sam Ogina, good afternoon.
Well, good afternoon to you in studio, Najma. Well, as you rightly said, the outgoing Tanzanian President Jakaya Kikwete, any minute from now, say probably in less than an hour, same behind me, as you can see, members of Parliament have been lining themselves up just to rehearse on how to receive the Tanzanian President. His trip here to Kenya is actually quite significant, the 3-day official visit for the Tanzanian President, given that this is actually the second time a sitting president will be addressing the joint sitting of Parliament, that is the National Assembly and the Senate, given that that is under President Uhuru Kenyatta's tenure, because the former Nigerian President Goodluck Jonathan was actually the first one to do that. That is in 2013, when President Uhuru Kenyatta had actually just assumed office. Now, another point or rather significance for this visit is actually because remember during the time that 2008. It is actually Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete that brokered that deal that Kenya signed, that is between retired President Mwai Kibaki and former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, the National Accord. It is a deal that was actually brokered by quite some history there between Kenya and Tanzania, and especially between Jakaya Kikwete and Kenya for that matter. And also don't forget that Kenya some frosty relationship diplomatically, an impasse between Kenya and Tanzania. There was the time that actually tourism vans between both for Kenya and Tanzania were actually barred from accessing airports, accessing tourism sites, given a misunderstanding between Kenya and Tanzania at that particular time. And it had to take the personal initiative or intervention of President Uhuru Kenyatta to speak directly to President Jakaya Kikwete so that they could find a midpoint in this issue. And also, Ali had spoken about the KQ flights to Tanzania. Back then, the Tanzanian authorities had said that a maximum of 14 flights per week, and yet KQ used to fly 42 times. Now this meant that in terms of economic empowerment, then KQ was disadvantaged. But of course, there was an agreement on this one, and status quo was reinstated, given again an intervention by the president. And then comes in the issue of the coalition of the willing in regards to the East African Protocol, or East Africa Community Protocol for that matter. This was way back in 2013, and the issue back then was Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda and Burundi had actually held 3 consultative meetings, heads of state summits for EAC meetings. One was here in Mombasa, the other one was in Uganda, and the final one was in Rwanda, whereby Tanzania was not represented in all these meetings, and actually Kikwete went to Parliament, the Tanzanian Parliament, to give reasons why they feel that they've been isolated for integration of the East Africa community. And he said they feel that Tanzania has been isolated. They feel that this coalition of the willing, that he's the one who coined the coalition of the willing, is actually discriminative against Tanzania and Tanzanians for that matter. And he said that Tanzania will not budge from the EAC, they are not ready to exit the EAC, and actually that you can't be talking about integration and yet you are isolating a brother. And that diplomatic impasse continued for a while until just the other day when that is the Tanzanian President Jakaya Kikwete was elected the chairman of the EAC member states. That was way back in sometime back in early 2015, and from there we've been seeing him trying to mellow down, just trying to warm up back into the EAC member states. And of course he's been making forays here and there. They've been having meetings with the Uhuru Kenyatta as president, and also other EAC heads of states. And of course, the visit that culminates with him addressing Parliament today, equally so them commissioning the Arusha to Mwatate road link. Well, that of course is going to open up road link or road network for that matter between Kenya and Tanzania, given that the link that was there was between Arusha and Namanga for that matter. So even the Namanga one, the Namanga road network is going to be also improved as the other one is being constructed. So a lot of history between Kenya and Tanzania that is just going to play out here in the National Assembly when he addresses the Parliament for that matter. And what we expect probably is just a number of policy issues between Kenya and Tanzania, the engagement between the two countries, because yesterday they said they're going to enhance and expand the development and infrastructure development between the two countries. So today we just want to listen to what are the policy issues that the Tanzania president is going to spell out just to enhance that engagement between Kenya and Tanzania. And also, finally, if I may, because I can see a number of police officers now streaming in, and any minute from now they're going to kick us out from here, is that the first relationship between Kenya and Tanzania is what is going to be actually on focus right now, because him coming to Kenya means that there is a mellowdown or just probably thawing of that frosty ice that was there between Kenya and Tanzania, and now just to see going forward what will happen between these two countries, whether that engagement that used to be there before the Kenyatta regime came in, way into Kibaki, Moi, and the late Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, is going to be scaled up. Najma?
Very much. Sam Ogina will be keeping an eye in Parliament to tell us what outgoing Tanzanian President Jakaya Kikwete will be talking about. Remember, Tanzania goes to the polls on the 25th of October. Kikwete has served for 2 terms and is due to retire. We now join Michelle Ngele, who is at our town offices, to tell us how the TSC appeal has been faring on. Tell us, take us through some of the submissions, Michelle, given by both sides in today's session.
Well, thank you very much, Najma. Today is the last day of that hearing, of that appeal, in which the Teacher Service Commission is seeking a reversal of the 50 to 60% pay rise. Now, this has been quite a lengthy hearing. It began on the 21st of September, that is 2 weeks ago, and we have had submissions from the petitioner, that is the Teacher Service Commission, the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, as well as Attorney General Githu Muigai over the past few days. And in the past 2 days, yesterday and today, we have had submissions from the legal team representing the Kenya National Union of Teachers and the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers. Now, both sides have given quite some strong arguments to argue out their cases, to support their cases. The teachers, the petitioners, the TSC, the SRC, and the Attorney General, of course, remain with the stance that the government simply cannot afford to pay teachers the salary increment, saying that this was an unforeseen cost that was not factored in on the budget, and should the government decide to pay teachers, then that means that the country's VAT will be increasing from 16% to 22%, meaning that there will be a significantly high increase in the cost of living in the country. Now, that has been the main argument, despite the many submissions that they have given. Now, when we come to the teachers' side, we have NAT and KUPPET, and they have given several submissions too, but the one issue that kept coming up over and over again was the issue of SRC's involvement in the teachers' pay dispute. The SRC had advised the Teacher Service Commission not to implement the salary increment, saying that this would burden the public wage bill. Now, NAT lawyer Kioko Kilukumi addressed this issue extensively, saying that the SRC has been given the constitutional mandate to be an advisor, but this advice given by the SRC is not binding upon any commission, including the Teacher Service Commission, and so the TSC had the option of making its own decision of whether or not to pay teachers, and so this decision by the SRC was not binding. And then in their submissions, the SRC had said that the 50 to 60% should be scrapped because teachers' salaries have already been harmonized with those of other public servants in the country. Now, NAT lawyers came out, very vehemently, to speak about this issue. First of all, by presenting 2 circulars before the chambers. And the first circular was one showing that the TSC has increased the salaries of its secretariat twice in the past 7 months. The second circular was that of the SRC approving this salary increment to the TSC secretariat. Now, what emerged during that hearing is that some members of this TSC secretariat have lower qualifications than some graduate teachers, but are still earning much higher than them. And so the NAT legal defense team was asking, what kind of criteria is the SRC using in harmonizing these salaries? And the SRC had also said that it has the mandate, it has the right to advise the Teacher Service Commission because it has been given the constitutional mandate of fixing salaries of state officers. Now, NAT lawyer Kioko Kilukumi also came out to say that the teachers are not state officers. Teachers are public servants, and so the SRC has the mandate of fixing the salaries of state officers, but public servants have the constitutional right of negotiating their salaries with their employer. And so he told the SRC, advising them that if they wanted a sustainable wage bill, then they ought to look critically at the salaries of the entire public service and not just those of teachers, because we have state officers in the country who earn the lion's share, some earning even 100 times what the lowest earning teacher is paid, Najma.
Michelle, what do we expect in the ruling, and when is the ruling ending?
Well, as we speak, Najma, we have finished with the submissions from the teachers' union, the submissions from the petitioner. What is going on now is responses to those submissions by the teachers' unions that will be bringing to a close this particular hearing. After that, we do expect the chambers to state the date of the ruling. Of course, the session is still ongoing. It should be over any minute now, and we do expect the chambers to state the date of that ruling. But again, we expect them to take quite a bit of time debating over this issue, because this is a very landmark case. The ruling in this case will determine the future of the teachers' dispute. Remember, teachers have suspended their strike for 90 days to allow for sober dialogue on the way forward regarding their pay. Now, should the court rule that the 50 to 60% pay rise should be reversed, then that means that teachers will be going back on strike, because then there will be no dialogue taking place even within 90 days. And then should the court rule that the 50 to 60% should be maintained, then we will have the Teachers Service Commission convening that neutral committee that they were directed to convene during the Aborder ruling to have dialogue on the way forward on how to pay teachers, Najma.
Thank you very much, Michelle Ngele. Quite a comprehensive coverage there on the teachers' saga. Time now for a short break. We'll go for a break after this. Police in Mombasa are warning members of the public to be on the lookout and be wary of people purporting to be police officers. Mombasa County Commissioner Nelson Maro says some people are harassing and calling members of the public by purporting to be police officers. They show fake police job cards to mislead the public. Coast Regional Police Commandant Francis Wanjohi says they are on the watch out to arrest the culprits. The security chiefs in Mombasa spoke to the press at Uhuru Nakazi building in Mombasa.
Business yako akija wapi usiku anajifanya ni police officer na kuonyesha kadi kama hii, tupigie simu mara moja. Akikuomba pesa mwambie enda njoo kesho, uje saa 2 saa 3, ikupatie muda utuambie tutue hapo.
Sheria ile ambao ilitoa hiki cheti iko hapa pia. Damu ya hii mtu kama sasa ile the blood group itself iko hapa, this O positive, ina cheo chake na bali yake ya kazi, na pia yeye ana madaraka gani katika National Police Service. And of course iko na watermark ndani.
Now, over 65% of Mombasa residents face forceful eviction from their homes. Majority of that population are squatters and those living in the slums. This is according to the report by the Amnesty International that focused on Jomvu evictions. John Juma reports.
Scenes like these are not new to residents of Mombasa and Coast region. Bulldozers demolishing houses while hired youth discard belongings of the evictees. Events like these occur in the full glare of security officers. The aftermath, displaced residents and loss of property.
Usiku kuna baridi, nyumba zimemomolewa, tuna watoto, tunaishi kwa dhiki yani.
Hatuna roho, tumeketi kama tuna wasiwasi, hatujui tumesimamia wapi.
Ile eviction order ambayo ilikuja ikatuevict sisi, si plot number yetu. Yani ni dhuluma hapo ndani imetokezea.
Amnesty International now say over 65% of Mombasa residents face possible forceful eviction due to the national and county projects being carried out, such as the SGR, Dongo Kundu and Lapset. But some evictions may emanate from the controversies surrounding land ownership between private developers and the squatters. Most recent case being the controversial Dunga Unuse evictions.
Nitatafuta wenzangu tuweze kurudi nyuma kwa miaka hiyo yote ili unyanyasaji uno tuweze kwenda hata kama koti ya kimataifa tuweze kulipwa ridhaa zetu kama watu wa Maumau walivyodai haki zao.
Mombasa County is a site for various projects that are happening, both from the national government as well as from the county government. The national government projects, as you know, there are the Dongo Kundu bypass, the SGR, Lapset, there are many projects. Then the CIDP, the County Integrated Development Plan, also has lots of projects.
There are over 147 slums in Mombasa, which forms about 65% of the population of Mombasa. People who do not have security of tenure, neither do they have title deeds. Now, these are people that are going to potentially be evicted.
In their report of Jammu and Bangladesh evictions, Amnesty International accused the Kenyan National Highways Authority for abusing and violating human rights of people in the name of Mombasa Mariakani Highway Expansion Project.
It must not be done at night. It must not be done in bad weather. It must not be done over the weekend. You need to give people an opportunity to challenge the decision of eviction in court.
And now the organization demands that apart from apologizing, Kenha should move with speed and compensate the victims.
These are Kenyans. They've been living here. We are under the government. What is government going to do for us to move us from here to another place, or at least compensation? These were not done for Jomvu. Some of the people that saw what was happening at midnight, when people's homes were being crushed, when their properties were being destroyed, when their dreams were being taken away from them, when they were left in despair, people in Bangladesh, some of them had begun to take away the building materials.
While the victims rely on courts to give solution to the perennial land controversies in the region, the Amnesty International is urging the legislators to pass the eviction and resettlement bill as a way of getting a lasting solution. John Juma, KTN News, Mombasa.
Time now for a short break, but don't go too far. I will be back with more news. Welcome back. You're watching Newsdesk on KTN News, your 24-hour news channel. Now, tension has been reported in the Central African Republic, with about 60 people feared dead, another 300 injured in the latest wave of violence in the capital.
Along the streets of Baravanga neighborhood in the Central African Republic, heavily armed police patrol in an armored vehicle. This is now a common sight in the war-torn capital. The violence began on September 26th after the murder of a Muslim driver and then spread to several districts of the city.
Nous avons dégagé 27 barricades.
We've pulled down 27 barricades between the Marbena roundabout and the airport. Freedom of movement is a right of the whole population that can't be held hostage by groups of criminals and other people who don't want peace.
Des criminels, des groupes de personnes qui ne veulent pas la paix.
Protesters threw up roadblocks and demanded the resignation of the country's interim president, Catherine Samba Panza, who was attending the UN General Assembly in New York. More than 30,000 people fled from their homes.
C'est avec toute la population qu'on ira.
We are going to build a stronger society with the help of the whole population. One where social development, political development, and economic development will one day be a reality.
Économique soit chaque jour une réalité.
The international community is now viewing the violence in Bangui as one that may destabilize the country during the transition process. Lofty Matambo, KTN News.
Now, the African Union says only a speedy improvement of living conditions on the continent will stem migration to Europe and other parts of the developed world. The chair of the AU Commission, Nkosana Dlamini Zuma, spoke as she met French President François Hollande in Paris.
With a migration wave that shows no sign of abating, Europe is grappling with what is billed as one of its greatest crises in modern times. And adding to the influx from Syria and other troubled parts of the world are the dangerous journeys made by thousands of migrants from Africa, many of them fleeing poverty or war or simply seeking new opportunities. And that crisis dominated discussions between the French president and the AU chief. Hollande acknowledged what is slowly becoming conventional wisdom, that the influx of the refugees is not the real problem, but rather a symptom.
Cette rencontre entre l'Europe et l'Afrique, l'Afrique et l'Europe.
This meeting between Europe and Africa and Europe will affect migration, and we want to not simply prevent these people from coming, but actually come up with a plan that will work on the root cause of this phenomena and act at the source of migration, and so it entails putting in place a large development policy.
Et donc, ça suppose de mettre en place une grande politique de développement.
The number of Africans migrating to Europe each year is unclear, but it is believed that between 5 million and 8 million immigrants from Africa now live in Europe. The African Union chair says conditions in Africa must change for this trend to be reversed.
Immigration is as old as human beings, and it will continue. But for us, it's important that we create conditions in Africa where Africans leave Africa out of choice, not out of desperation. And so we need to look at how do we skill these young people, how do we create jobs for the young people, and how do we empower them to create jobs themselves.
She criticized the growing trend in some European countries to erect walls to keep the refugees out.
We think that if we just concentrate too much on the security side, we will not succeed to deal with this problem in the medium and in the long term. Because we've seen, history has taught us that there's no high wall that can stop people. There are no fences that can stop people. We need to deal with the conditions on the ground in their country, in our countries.
France is pledging to get more involved in resolving conflicts such as the one in the Central African Republic and Burkina Faso. Joageo, KTN News.
Now, amid the crisis, the Mo Ibrahim Foundation, which tracks leadership on the continent, says there has been no significant gains in governance on the continent. He says most countries have hit a plateau in their political development. The foundation says this latest report should be a wake-up call for governments around the continent.
We notice that this upward direction somehow plateaued. It hasn't gone back. It's still going up at a very slow pace. So the first thing we say here is African governance improvement is stalling. What is improving clearly is human development. Health and education continue to improve over the last 15 years. Over the last 4 years, it still continue to improve. That's great news. You have a civil war, you have no development. Look at what's happening in Somalia, what's happening in South Sudan. This is the worst performance, and of course you can guess that.
I think it's a wake-up call. I think a wake-up call to say that governance is continuous work in progress. You must always look at where your gaps are, you try to address them and so on. And I think that's the best contribution that the Index can do now.
To South Africa now, where U.S. President Barack Obama's step-grandmother was honored for her work to improve the lives of people. Now, the daughters of U.S. activists Malcolm X and Ghanaian independence leaders also took part on behalf of their fathers. This year, the theme of the The one I Am on African, which aimed to honor artists who have made an impact in the South African music industry and socio-political life and its diaspora. Sarah Obama has been helping dozens of children in Kenya through her. She assists orphans who are either from extreme poverty or have lost both their parents due to HIV.
After having received the Nobel Peace Prize,
Thank you so much. Thank you.
To sports now, after Kenya's display at the just concluded Safari Sevens that saw Shujaa narrowly lose to Samurai in the main cup finals, Ultimate Rugby Sevens representative Tom Burwell believes Kenya can go a long way in developing rugby if it's introduced at an early age to young players. Robinson Okenya spoke to him and files the following report.
The 20th edition of the Safari Sevens saw a number of top teams from across the world take part in the showpiece that had Samurai crowned the winners. Some coaches who witnessed the proceedings at the Kasarani Stadium feel rugby in Kenya has grown over the years. Tom Burwell from Ultimate Rugby Sevens Academy, which is aimed at developing rugby in different parts of the world, feels Kenya still has a lot of raw talent to develop.
The raw talent that is here in Kenya specifically is outstanding. I know that a former national team coach, Mike Friday, will say exactly the same thing. And hopefully with a little bit of extra coaching and development in certain areas, we're now doing in schools, colleges, universities and tier 2 clubs, and in the women's game you're beginning to see a real traction and change in some of the things that we're trying to coach and we're trying to put across to people.
The 27-year-old former Newcastle Falcons player has been conducting rugby clinics in the country since 2014 and feels the country is headed in the right direction when it comes to rugby, but it should be introduced at an early age to young players.
Take someone and start the game at a much younger age. I started playing at 6, right? So if you can get people playing the game at a much younger age and get those habits and those sometimes bad habits out of them at an early age, then you've got an even better player than your Chengays and your Andolas that we've seen that started. For me, the rugby in Kenya is already incredible, and it's about how you hone that talent and perhaps get people playing at a younger age.
Burwell, who has been working with coaches and selected rugby players in the country, feels the interest in rugby has grown over the years due to the popularity and good performances of the Kenyan teams.
There's more interest now in the game than there was 2 years ago, and I mean that from a wider spectrum. It's not just sevens and about the World Series and about the top of the game. There's more interest in the game in general, from people that are going to watch the Kenya 15s team through to people interested in developing the game in schools and universities.
Burwell hopes the clinics he has conducted will give his students a chance to understand what it takes to play rugby sevens at the highest level and put them on the path to success. Robinson Okenya, KTN Sports.
Well, that's it on Newsdesk. Join me at the top of the hour for News Track. My name is Najmi Ismail.